All right, thanks everybody for being on. We're gonna go over the fifth call. We're gonna go over level three. The first call, we really went over the free content and testing recommendations, just the education. Next call, we did speed and agility warm-ups, and it was 3 phases of speed, 3 phases of agility. Though that's just the speed and agility warm-ups is really my go-to for how I coach speed and agility. Um, and I always go back to speed and agility warm-ups for how we're training speed or warming up for agility. Um, and of course, they can be drills if you can structure it like a workout too. Uh, Level one was speed and game speed. So just to recap, we do coach speed. We do 5 to 10 yard fly for short speed, 20 to 10 yard fly for long speed. Just talking Cody Hughes a little bit, and a lot of people use the 5 to 10 yard fly, but you really can't estimate 40 for it. It's literally just a short speed metric. It's really good to estimate 40 for how fast you are the 20 to 10 yard fly. But the main thing about level one is we are teaching speed, but our agility training is really game speed, like learning how to get to an appropriate game speed. Because if you don't learn game speed first, you can't change directions efficiently. And then level two is how to start attacking 45 and rolling to 90 and brake plant separating to 90. Out of running forward, we call it linear, and how to move lateral and attack 45 and 90. So, and that's when we start to break up agility days into a linear day attacking it and a lateral day attacking it. And now we're on level three. So we're going to kind of complete learning how to run and move laterally and attack every angle. So the next angle we work on is, I call it 135, which is tight over here, and 180 is coming all the way back. Both of them are done very, very similar. And just like level two, there's an Anquan Bolden tutorial on there because he really helped me, really helped me design this curriculum. Without, I don't know, maybe he knew it, maybe he didn't, but his teachings and just opening up his book to me, his brain, was amazing. So that was what was really very important to me. Um, so level one, phase one is how do we attack angles moving forward? I think I say it every time, but hope we're pretty close to this being a mobile app. So, um, but on the game speed recommendation is just like always, like we're recommending there's 3 phases. Can you spend 2 weeks in each phase, which means do the linear workout twice, maybe a Tuesday, do the lateral workout twice, maybe a Thursday, and that takes 2 weeks. So you can rush through it in 6 weeks. I keep telling people we're not here to tell you how long to stay and how not. It's just we're trying to give y'all the right order to do stuff in. And I mean, I always come back to these and constantly, but we recommend at least 4 weeks up to 6 weeks on it. And then level one linear foot placement workout is you have Anquan Bolden talking about how to attack angles again. And this isn't a wide receiver program. It's learning from the best in the world that have to get from A to B in as fast time possible. And they have to be deceptive when they do it. That's a receiver. So that's every lacrosse player, every soccer player, every basketball player. And one thing that somebody told me the other day, which was great about receivers, is great receivers know you're not just beating the DB, you're also beating the D line or the defense, which means getting to A to B as fast as possible. And Anquan explained it to me a real good way the other day. He's like, I don't care if a receiver gets 3 yards open by shaking the defender out of his pants, if it takes him 3.5 seconds to get open. I need the receiver to be 1 to 2 yards open in 2 seconds. And the game is all about separation in as little time possible. And that's what these drills do. So I'd listen to Anquan Bolden whenever you can. And then the phase one linear foot placement workout is we do work away 45-degree gate hops into speed because it's teaching us how to push off our outside foot, which is needed on a 135 cut where you set your foot tight. We work brake plant separate into a comeback. Brake plant separate again is if I break and I plant and I'm wide, I'm going to spin in place. But if I break and plant and I'm tight, I can jab back and separate. And we'll go over the 180 cut because if I break wide and sit on my inside edge, I can cross. So we want to start teaching those, but the best way is break, plant, separate to a comeback. We show pro athletes doing it. And then the next way to do it is if I can't set the angle tight with a break and a plant tight, I can break and I can sit wide and cross over back. So we call that wide base crossover to a comeback. And there's just tons of different drills we can do that. And since we're working forward, we work in and out like hash marks or ladders and how to come in and out and push out of it. And great pro athletes that are doing that, and they're just simple drills, but I find like with the pro athletes that they need to be broken it down simpler as much as kids. Any questions about phase one, level 3? It's literally just how to run forward and set a break, plant, separate, or a wide base crossover. And then the lateral placement workout is instead of doing skate hops and setting up our outside edge, we do kind of wide base crossovers and setting up our inside edges just because it's good to start learning outside edges, break, plant, separate, inside edges, wide base crossover. So we're kind of prepping it. And we work on coming through ladders or hash marks and plant and separate. And again, it's just like moving forward. If I'm moving laterally and I stick my foot tight, shift my shoulder down, I'll jab back here, right? If I'm going and I stop wide, but I keep my shoulder inside, I'll cross over there. But if I get high and outside and plant, wide base, but outside, I'll spin in place. So we're going over all those and learning on also going 2 feet through outside turn, 2 feet to inside turn. And all we're trying to do is one good thing when you're moving laterally is coaches always tell you to keep your feet under your frame. Because once when your feet get outside your frame, you're loading punches. What I mean by that, if I'm moving laterally like this, and I got to turn over this shoulder, I want to dip the shoulder, plant underneath my frame, and jab back. What sometimes happens is you move laterally, and to go this way, you plant here. And it's like you're loading this way to come this way. Meanwhile, what Anquan and everybody teaches us is to dip that shoulder when you plant and stay underneath your frame, and you get that magical one step of separation. And I've started talking about a lot of that at school. School I'm teaching at is whenever we coach agility, like my guys are prepped. Like, what are we trying to do? One step, Tony. Start first. Be accelerator first. Change directions first. One step. So I just tell them it's just easier than they think. Just one step. It's not more complicated than that. So that's like the lateral through, and we work on some ickies. And why do we throw the ickies in there with lateral? Because remember, moving lateral is just moving side to side. Ickies is side to side, attacking forward. How you come out of those is the same. Side to side, outside edge, side to side, inside edge. Ickies outside edge, ickies inside edge. They're the same. So that's why I recommend doing them together. And you can just get creative with it. You don't need to do all the drills. We give about eight or so to do. But when you start doing them and repping them, and especially if you warm up, you just want to prep these, whatever for 30, 40 minutes in the agility session. So any question about the phase one lateral one? Okay. And then we're at linear foot placement, workout straight through. And we start to work on multiple like skate hopping again for outside edge. And we do teach a fast feet replace to come back. And why do we teach that? Because it is going to happen where you're running and you've got to plant that outside foot and stick and replace where I didn't break and sit. I just whip it. It's going to happen. And shoot, some receivers do it and get open. If they threaten speed long enough, they can spin in place as much as they want because the DB's off of them. And it's any position. If someone's off of you, it doesn't matter how you change direction. Now, how'd you get them off of you? Did you dance? Did you threaten speed? Doesn't matter. So we do practice the fast feet and replace. We just want to practice the breakdown ones in level 1 and then teach them. I call fast feet replace. Now let's react to it. Let's attack it with a change of direction, which is I sit into it, I break into it. Let's react to it and whip it around. So we do teach fast feet and replace and do all that. And then we do pro athletes there, which is really interesting, is we set down 2 ladders and, just 5 rungs, and one athlete's going break, plant, separate, boom, and the other athlete's going fast feet in place. And that's a fun drill to do with kids because they start to learn that break, plant, separate versus the fast feet in place is always going to win. And it just always gets you ahead. So we do that sometimes, and we'll say, hey, this line over here going this way is break, plant, separate. This one's fast feet replace. Well, who goes first? Let's let this one go first. We're giving them the win. They start first and they do a better change of direction. So they start first. This guy starts to panic. Boom, they separate. They spin in place. They get 2 to 3 yards of seven. Then we say, okay, let's let the fast feet in place go first. So now this break, plant, separate has to react to this person, move, and go and not panic. But if he break, plant, separates, he gets back and catches that step of reaction time. So we played with that a little bit, but I suggest watch that because I think Travis was outside on that like 3 years ago, and it was a change of direction workout where we warmed up, we started attacking 45s and rolling 90s. We did some start and stops, and then we just attacked things downfield. And that was our whole agility session with like 20 NFL players outside. Any question about phase 2, Linear? Okay. Phase 2 lateral. We don't do the outside edges. We go inside edges now for the skate hops. And it's the same thing. We're trying to teach how to plant and separate and moving laterally and wide base. And if we miss it, we spin, but do we still get out of it? Some people talk about that spin being a drop step. And what I mean by that is a drop step is when you get wide and I still got to get this way, this foot picks up and drops and it creates that torque. So sometimes you'll see base stealers, right? And everybody says don't false step. Well, if your feet are really, really wide as a base stealer and you got to get this way, you're going to drop that foot, boom, and create that torque to wide base crossover. Or you can simply start in narrow. I don't know which one is right, but I know what's not right is getting too wide and spinning in place and fast feet and replace out of that. So sometimes we'll say, hey, let's fast feet replace, get outside a little bit and drop it to our crossover. And sometimes we'll say spin to your crossover. And we do it a lot of different ways so people can feel like, oh man, I stayed in place. Oh, at least I got out of it. And that's what we go over in this. And it's really, really interesting. And Travis said it one time in a video I post a lot. He goes, Tony will put you in a position that you always do that's wrong. And he'll let you feel it wrong. And then he'll show you the right way. And then you know what the right way feels like. So the wrong way is just, I call the reactive way, the fast feet and replace way. It happens. So whenever we do that, we're like, hey, let's get out of it as fast as we can, but there are better ways. Any questions about that? Again, we're going lateral and ickies, right? Laterals are the same as ickies. And then phase 3 is I just come up with like a lot of different stuff where we're jumping into cuts, where we double tap and jump, where like it's almost like I'm trying to put you into bad positions and then still have you hit the good change of direction position to get from A to B. So we call it get discombobulated and then be able to hit the perfect change of direction. So we do that in level 3 and just have different ways to set it up. Do we show speed when we set it up? Do we dance when we set it up? Do we put our head down? Do we pop up? It's just, let's not make it perfect how to get there, but let's make it perfect when we get there. So it's kind of like adding in the artistic of getting there to being a scientist at the point of attack. And that's what Anquan Bolden and all the great ones taught me is, I don't care. Well, Anquan Bolden and them are scientists the whole time. Man, I'm just going to get there. I'm not dancing. I'm not doing all this. I'm just getting there. But it doesn't matter if you dance or how you get there. But what has to be important is, do you change directions like a scientist? And that's what we kind of do in level 3 is get in a bad position or in phase 3. get in a bad position, but make sure you get back to a good position on the straight through. And it's the same thing with the lateral through. It's just different ways to work on foot placements to come back over our shoulders, 135 or 180. So any questions about level 3? This can be a quick call. I'm hoping it kind of shows people, and especially if they go back and watch it, how now it's outlined out, where once when you get through level 3, you've literally learned everything that took me a long time to learn of how to sprint and run and change directions. One great question I got was about offensive linemen. Like, and I forgot to touch on it at the beginning, but it was, Tony, is this good for O linemen, or what can we do for O linemen? I'm like, every single O lineman in the world needs to learn level 1 through 3. How to sprint, how to push off the ground, how to learn game speed, how to set inside edges, how to set outside edges, how to attack 45, how to roll 90, how to shift back inside. They do that when they pull. Like every O lineman, every sport has to learn level 1 through 3. Then you can start working position specific training. And that's going to come up in level 7, which will be court sports and defensive principles. Because court sports, defensive principles, and fighting is all going to be the same. And it's just how to keep wide bases and how to play defense. And that's going to be fighting. O lineman is the same as a DB. O line's in a wide base, DB's in a tight base. But they're doing the same thing. A receiver is very similar to a D end. D end's in a tight space, receivers got a little more space. But they're the same. So the whole idea about position specific is kind of stupid. Because I'm going to be like, dude, I'm going to teach a receiver and a D end very alike. And I'm going to teach an offensive lineman and a DB very alike. But an offensive lineman is much wider, much more powerful, like a fighter, because he's got to be more grounded to take on forces. A DB is going to be like, think about a offensive lineman like an MMA guy who's good at wrestling. They got wide bases. They're throwing bombs and crosses, and they're defending takedowns and creating leverage, right? Think of O linemen like that. But now think of DBs like Floyd Mayweather. They're a little higher, they're dancing, their feet are tight. Now, what do Floyd Mayweather do? He pops, he jabs, right? But what do fighters do and wrestlers? They take contact. So you got to think about that, but it's just DBs are out of tight bases, O-line are out of wide bases, but the principles are very same. You know the offensive line kick step is right? You know they teach a kick step for DBs. They just call it a patience back pedal. Just keeping that wide base in your back pedal. So all this stuff, I don't like the term position specific. We're going to get into it. All right, well, what drills do Mike and Marquise Pouncey like from levels 1, 2, and 3 that they like for offensive line? Oh, they love the hurdle mobility. Yeah. And they like coming in and out of the ladder and then into a kick step. Oh, yeah. And they like to skate hop and push off the ground. They like to sit and then open and pull like they're pulling. Oh, okay. Like it's all the same stuff. So we're going to get into that in level 7 of court sports defensive principles. And defensive principles are like O linemen. Court sports are wide bases like basketball, tennis, not sprinting, moving. That's O lineman 101. And defensive principles, how to keep someone in front of you. That's O lineman 101. So part of it's going to be level 7. And then the position specific of level 8 is going to be pro athletes and great athletes. Just picking all the stuff we did and said, okay, now make this a position specific workout. Oh, well, Tony, I'm just going to do that drill right there and do it like this. Yeah, same drill. It's just now we're doing it. And maybe you're wearing a football helmet and saying it's an O-line drill. So any questions? This can be a short one, and then we'll just upload it. All right, I will stop recording and then let anyone talk smack that wants to.